so there we go. Hopefully you can see. That's our chippiness. Now what we want to do now is just basically blend it all in. Couple of ways you can do that. Obviously you can put a filter over it, just spray down a colour, okay, but we don't really do that because we're really unmasked, all right? So what we're going to do is use some pigments. Now, not mass fan of going around with pigments. I find them very messy and everything else, but sometimes it really works quite well. And I think on a larger model, you can get away with it. So same thing. We got down here, I'm just going to use what's on the lid. You can take some of the pigments onto a brush, load up a brush. Now we're using these dry, you could use them with water and everything else. But what we're going to do, it's almost like dry brushing. So we're going to put some down, brush it off, all right? And then, get this all in shot. Okay, we can come along and we can just then tease it over the metal work, okay? Now this will do two things. First of all, hopefully it'll make it look more like metal and less like silver paint, okay? Purely because it just gives it that edge. Okay, secondly, it will knock it back a bit. Now, if you notice, we're going in direction of airflow because we're just going in to make it look like it's had streaking and everything else. But I find if you're going to be putting chipping down, pigment over the top just really brings it all to life, okay? The other thing as well, using a pigment, it looks more like footfall, all right? So if you're using a situation perhaps where you're thinking of like crew been walking around and the griminess they get, they're not going to be leaving footprints and they're not going to be leaving silver things behind. But what they will be doing is leaving grime. So this is the great way of doing grime, all right? So all we're going to do is putting this over everything, okay? And then just running it round. Okay, and we're just going to lay it over the decals as well that are a little bit bright, okay? So just take a bit more, just on here, and we're just going to take it down over these engines, just pulling them back, just over the panel areas and everything else, and just a little bit over the top of the areas. But you can actually start it like here on a line and then just icking it back, and what that'll do is just keeps everything what I call in proportion. So we're just going to come along, we're just going to scrub it just down in here, and because it's on a flat surface this should all stick very, very nicely. Okay, so what we're going to do now, a couple of little areas, so a little bit like random airbrushing. You're just going to come on and we're just going to now brush it right the way over this entire panel. So we're just putting in bits and pieces and then just going to run it over, and then hopefully, as you can see, we're just going to take off some of that light scuffed area, and we're just going to rub it over the decals as well. This is just to try and knock it down a touch, make it a little bit more realistic. As I say, if this white band you had, if it was strong, you could take care of it. But here we go, this is the difference, okay? That's with the and without. As you can see, it's very, very strong, knocked it back, okay? And we're not going to try and do everything with this one. We are literally just keeping it quite focal to various areas, all right? But if you ever needed to do soot and stains, you're just going to do exactly the same technique. But what I do recommend is to knock it off of your brush first. Don't just stick on a full brush full. Otherwise, you're going to end up with real problems. But also, it's a great way of bringing into scale things like decals, okay, because those usually get very, very strong, okay? So unless you've overcoated them at some point, they're going to be really, really strong. All right, so what we're going to do is just scraping this over here, but classic example, this little guy here, okay, as you can see, it's a bit tricky with all these different camera angles, but we're just going to try and knock back this guy just a little bit. Going to use the pretense of the engine to give us that look. Okay, perhaps a little bit, so I'm just chasing in various areas, and then we're just going to blend. Okay, that's all we're going to do. Okay, just little bits. Just little scuffs and various things, and then once you've got going with it, you can then blend in but they're very, very focal. And because you're on a flat coat, it'll bite in. Okay, I'm just going to knock back this decal, this yellow, because it's very, very strong. Okay, so we're just going to quite a bit on this here, just to make it look like it's had quite a bit of use. Obviously it's a fuel filler area, so crew would have crawled up and been all over this, which is what we're trying to recreate by going over this. So same thing, I'm just going to pop over this decal. Now, people say about fixing decals down, it's a question we get quite a bit on the shows we do. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Unless you're going to be handling this or taking it out in the rain, you should be absolutely fine, okay? But there we go, really handy. But say this little technique of putting it on towel before you brush with it will just hopefully take the edge off. Okay, just going to come in, exhaust again, manifolds, things like that, just around the cowling area, just literally. And obviously you could do your exhausts fully like this if you wanted to. Okay, just a little bit more around in here. Okay, just a little bit more on this wing. Just trying to wear it in. Just going to come back over here, a couple of little spots perhaps. Also, if you find you've got little specks of colours and you're thinking, what's that? Just run a little bit of this over it and it'll take it all in. But there we go, that's it. Ooh, excuse the Hercules transport aircraft. Okay. Quite nice when you get your flybys, but not good when you're filming. Okay, I'm just going to take care of areas where we've done a little bit of weathering. Also, if you've done little touch-ups of paint, okay, so perhaps like I've done here, we had to paint afterwards the trim tab activators. They're slightly the wrong shade of colour because of everything. Just give them a brush over with this and it will help blend everything all nicely back in. Alright, but there we go, that's what we're trying to achieve. If I just bring this top camera out a little bit, you can see, be a bit careful where we handle this now, but this is our type of weathering now we've gone with to really make this all come to life, look grimy. Obviously this side, because it's dark, you can't really see it, but over here you can see exactly what we're doing. So only if we've taken care of like too much silvering for the chipping. We've still got the chip in, but now we've got it to look far, far more. And it's a simple job, 2 minutes with the actual pigments. But just remember what's on your hand, remember what's on your surface, okay? So don't go running around too much with it. We've only got 2 bits left now. We've got to install the Pitot tube onto the front, and we've got to do the wiring at the back. Get a bit of a clear up, get this stuff sorted away. We can put those on and we're all ready for the final reveal. Okay, so that's that weathering done, and hopefully you agree, it actually turned out a lot better than originally we thought. Because to be honest, even I was thinking overdone the chipping. But remember, this is the whole point with the hobby as a whole. You can never actually go wrong. You can always fix your problems, either by, worst case scenario, you repaint it, but also just try other things on there, because what's the worst can happen? You respray it. Well, there you go. That's the easy one in the first place. So anyway, that one's done now. Really happy how that's turned out. Next thing, we've got this problem because I am missing a light, okay, which we've got here. Now, the trouble is, I've looked, I've been through the bags, the boxes and everything. I'm not sure if it was missing originally or perhaps just something that's happened over time. So what I've done is I've taken a chunk out of the sprue, using the clear sprue, and to be honest, we've used the medium, this is the medium sanding stick that we've got here to start with off on the coarse, and now we've just moved over to the medium coarse size, and all we're doing is technically just making another one. Now to start with, all we're doing is roughly guessing it. Okay, so we're just bringing it along now, and I'm literally just holding it next to it. Just take a bit out here, and we're just second guessing it, but obviously we've got it on a long pole. If you used to have a little bit, you'd never be able to hold on to it. Okay, so we're just gonna go round, okay, and we're just trying to get it roughly the right shape, using this one as a template. Okay, so we're not looking too bad. So what we need to do now is flatten out the base. Now we know this isn't going to be a perfect fit, So what we're going to do is hopefully get it in the ball game, in the type of area we need. Okay, and then we can go. But a lot of it is just getting angles. Then when we're roughly there, we can use a polisher, okay, and then starting with the blue side, and we're going to wet this as well. To be honest, I've got a big seam in the middle, which I didn't see before. So we're just going to sand that big seam out. Just blend all that through, okay. Then we're just going to come in with the polishers just to get this done. If you wet them, it will just speed everything up. Okay, so using the blue, let's say the inside, I won't worry too much about it, but then obviously use the good side, the white, and we'll come hopefully back crystal clear, and then we'll be in a situation to put our colour on the inside. In fact, that's gone so well, that's worked really, really nicely. Hopefully you can see that on the different angles. All right, so no problem with that at all. So then what we can do is take a quick measurement of where we want to be with this. Okay, and what we're going to do is somewhat come back in on it. I'm just looking at it thinking I maybe just want to sand the bottom edge in just to give it a slightly more of an edge on it. Okay, just going to place it down, just holding on, just shallowing out this angle, just making it a little bit more pointy. Okay, we're just going to check it against it, pretty much there. Okay, and then what we're going to do, we're going to be a little bit technical here. Hopefully, find my calipers. Looks like they've gone astray somewhere else. Never mind. What we're going to do, we're just going to nip this guy off. And then we can hopefully get a nice join. So we know we need to be that big. Looking at it, I think we're pretty close there. I'm very happy with how that's come along. So what we want to do is, we don't want to lose this guy, and that's the trouble. So we're going to just play it safe. We're just going to put a bit of tack down here like this. We're going to tack one in, okay. Then I'm going to come purely so I can know what I'm doing. Just going to come in from the other side. And the idea is, by placing it down on the tack, it's not going to fire off when we cut it. Okay. So what we can do is come in. We know it's this big. Okay, and then hopefully we can just cut it. So you could use a razor saw, but I'll be honest with you, my razor saw is broke. Blade through this. Come on, there we go. So that's saved it from firing out. So now we've got both bits. As I say, it's a bit foggy, this one, because it's just on one side. But what we can do is, I don't know if there's a side that needs to be done on them. Place them just here. But what we can do now is just marry them up just to see what we've got. Actually, I have to say, apart from a little work at the back, pretty much spot on. Okay, so what we've got to do now is just sand out where we've gone a little bit too deep and we've bent the plastic as we were trying to cut it. Okay, this is the only thing is, it's very small, very delicate, very easy to lose. Okay, so we're just going to test fit him again. Actually, I'm really happy with how that is. Couple of options. Obviously, I'm going to do to the outside to give it more of a thing, but we're just going to come in with crystal clear. But if you wanted to, you could actually do the inside. So all we're going to do, a little bit of crystal clear. Okay, just going to come in the edge. Too much, as always, you definitely want to have too much. I know it sounds silly, but it just makes things so much easier. Okay, then cotton bud that's wet. Okay, just making sure that's all sat in there. And there we go, that's that tip put on. We can hopefully fix the other side in as well. This will be the same. Alright, so we're just going to grab, obviously you won't probably need quite as much glue. Pop that in the side, and then hopefully this guy, don't think there's a left and a right, I'm hoping not. There's a little square peg on here. Which I think there is a left and a right, and we've done the wrong side, so we easily fix what we're going to do. Just going to take the peg off the back. Okay. Because they are flush, it's just getting them on, and I'm just going to tidy up the back as well, because the back edge where we removed it from the sprue's got a little bit sticking out, so it's just a case of making it nice and clean. Don't want to cut too much off. A bit more glue now because we haven't got that center peg holding it. Just like that. Again, I'm just going to wet and polish off. Just stops it going shiny afterwards. Okay, so that's both of those in. Just whilst they're drying, okay, going to take a little bit to dry, and then what we can actually do is pop the top on here. Then we've got, let's tidy this up out of the way. Next up, going to do the aerial on the back. Okay, now for this, clear a bit of space. Dusty. Okay, for this, obviously we've got this going to here. Pretty straightforward, okay? You could use normal thread. For me, I like to use this. Now this is actually stretchy elastic. It's called knitting in elastic. We've used it many times before. Okay. It's flat, it's not a round one, okay? But the great thing with this is the stretch isn't strong. It's not like some elastics where it's going to be pulling your aerials and everything together. So actually what you can do is make some quite nice effects with this. So at the back here, you've actually got two little ring holes, all right? I'll just bring this forward. You're in a situation where you've got the first and the second. Now it does go through both. Now looking at it, it does seem to thread through. Alright, so what we're going to do is try and thread this through the hole, which is a very small hole indeed, but if we can get it through we'll be happy. But because this is flat, I don't think it's going to, not without making it bigger. No, it's not going to. So what we're going to do is the old fashioned way. All we're going to do is just got a tiny bit of super glue. When we say tiny, definitely less is best. If you go in with this with too heavy, too quick, what's going to happen is it just doesn't glue, okay? So literally we're going to touch and we're going to touch, okay? And then with this, we're just going to go too far deliberately, okay? And we're stretching just a little bit. So we're pulling on the diagonals left and right, and then hopefully this should stick just like so. Give it a second. I wonder if we can do it off the top. If we just rest it on the top, might be a better look. We can trim this up afterwards. It's pretty straightforward, okay? So we can actually do that. But you say, if you put too much on there, what happens is it just flows and doesn't stick. It doesn't get a skin. If you give it a bit of time like this, we're in, okay? So then all we're going to do then, we just come up to our first post, okay? And I think I put a little bit too much on. But then all we're going to do is use our stretchy thread, and we're literally just going to come through, okay, and just pushing it down. Now we're not overstretching it, we're literally just holding it into place now and everything else. What you could do, because we're using super glue and it doesn't take too long, you can just literally leave it like that. Now I don't trust it just to sit there on its own, okay, minding your wingtips. What I like to do is obviously give it a little bit more strength, and for that again we're just straight back in here with our PVA. So this has just got a tiny bit of PVA glue on there, and all we're going to do is just going to put a tiny bit on the top and on the side here. We're going to take some away in a moment, so don't panic. Okay. Now the other thing as well, when you look at the aerials, it's not showing it here, but I know it has it. They do have these sort of antenna blocks on them. So the way I do that is just push this on, and you just put too much glue on there, and it will look like these blocks that they tend to have, which I assume are, not being a wireless guy, I'm not 100%, but I assume there's something to do with various things. But you can make them of different sizes. You just put far too much glue on there and let them come up. So I'm just going to second guess that this is going to put 2 in here, just because in the past I've seen them with 2 at one end, 1 at the other. All right, so those are on. Leave those to dry, then you can paint them up afterwards. All right, so that's those on just like that. And then once you're on, you can take, I've got a blade handy, take a razor blade, okay, and then hopefully you should be able to just nick just off like that. And at this end, you could use scissors as well, but in fact we will. If you've got some decoupage scissors, they're absolutely perfect for this. Just like that. And that's the aerials taken care of and in there. So the last thing we've got to go on is to do the Pitot tube, which is, got to remember now, up the front of, I think it's the port wing. We'll just check our references to make sure we're good. Yes, and I've just got to see where it actually is, because I don't think I've got a hole left, because we filled it when we were taking care of the front end. So we've got the Pitot tube here, which to be honest isn't exactly brilliant. It's not the nicest job in the world. All right, so I'm just going to look exactly where it goes. So it is in off of this one, so it's in here, and it looks like it's just to the side. This is where this reference is saying, so I'm hoping it's correct. All right, so we're just going to, actually I can see the hole where it was, and it's nothing to do with that reference point, so that's close enough. So we're just going to take a very small drill bit, and we're just going to open it up again. Okay, we're just going to tap this guy in place. Okay, it's going to be a little bit big, so we're going to super glue it into place, and then we'll come back and we'll reattach the glue. Now you want it to be facing forward, so that's your problem. I wonder if this has got a slight angle on it. Doesn't look like it has, unfortunately, but that's on just like that. So we're just making sure it's square and it needs to be level. It's leaning down just a little bit. Obviously you could use a bit of kicker. We've got ours in there like that. Then we're just going to take our paint, our glue, tiny bit of glue on there just to take care of that. Okay, now we're just going to make sure it's level. So it's all these things are making sure things are level and in place and everything else. So that's probably about level. So we just need this to come up just a fraction, because we want it to be facing forward. Certainly don't want it to be facing downwards, and we want it to be square as well. So we're just like now, to be honest, unfortunately that's off at a peculiar angle. So we're just going to then bend it forward as it's all drying, up and into position. That's gotcha. That's it, very straightforward. Now, we've got to do, obviously, painting of all this up. I'm going to leave these as white balls on there, because we will repaint them just with a tiny bit of white, probably off camera once those are dried. It's going to take a couple of hours, but we've actually got to, and this guy's leaning down now. Come on, stay with me, friend. What it is, it's because the weld glue is mixing now with the, eating through the super glue. So what we're going to do, just going to take, I don't know, any stainless steel colour. Let's have a normal stainless. It's quite a nice colour for Pitot and for aerials. So what we'll do, we'll just bring this guy around here. Bit down here. Let's move that out of the way. Okay, and then for this, we've got a metal-y one here. Just don't flick this stuff around. We just want this to go down onto the cable. All right, so just run it underneath, and then just brushing it across, we can actually hopefully make this nice and silvery. But there you go, that's exactly what you don't want to do. will take care of that, because if it flicks, it's going to splash onto your model. But because it's flat, this stuff, it can be a bit of a headache. Also, if this goes a little bit loose, don't worry about it too much. What will happen is it will come back to life. Like now, you maybe notice it's looking a little bit wrinkly. It does this, and then as this dries, it will come back to life again, so don't worry. In fact, it's gone very relaxed now. Okay, so just a little bit along here, got a little bit just along here. Okay, that's all done really nicely, but as that dries, it comes back. So if it suddenly sags, don't worry, you'll be okay. All right, so we're going to just do the same with the Pitot tube on the front. Okay, exactly the same type of technique, just going to push up. I don't think you can beat metallizer type paints on these types of things, because it just gives it a proper metal look rather than anything else. So that's that one done. Let's move that out of the way. Don't like using that particularly, but it is definitely a means to an end. Now the lights themselves looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit thick, that one, but I think we'll go with it. So we need some red and green for our standard navigation lights. Okay, so what we're going to do, just take this. Again, you could use a very fine brush, or if you wanted to, you could use a cocktail stick. Okay, grab your colour. Okay, just nicely up and over. Don't flood it. Just doing the back side and around the front. Okay, that's the red, and we're going to do the green for the other side. So quick, to be honest, we just flash that out on my trousers. Minding the aerial now, because we don't want to flick that off. Okay, we can come round with the green on this side. This is a new pot, so make sure you dig deep to get the green out. Green on green, we're not going to see much, but hopefully this will be lighter. That's nice. Okay. Clean all those brushes out. And that completes our build. So there we go. That is our 1/32 Revell bomber completely finished. Now there's a couple of things we need to do to dry off for the final reveal. Obviously these aerial bits need to go on there. A quick general check round it, make sure you're all good, make sure everything's covered and everything else like that. Must admit, I've got to get this little bit of silver off. To be honest, I'm going to do the pigment trick, rub a little bit of black pigment on it, nobody will see it. Okay, but there we go, that completes the work on our Revell 1/32 He111. Okay, and there we go, all done. The only thing I've done is I've painted inside the actual intakes for those radiators, dark iron and brushed them. I was going to do it photo etch, but to be honest, it didn't need to, it was already there. And that is a bit of a sort of thing we've had with this entire build. Yes, we had the big Ed set. Yes, it's extremely expensive. We haven't really used it. If I'm honest, all you're going to need, colour photo etch set is a godsend, absolutely fantastic. It details up that cockpit in there, it looks lovely. Okay, the external set, again, this paneling up here on the top, it works, it came to life, it gives a fantastic finish. Internal stuff, the Bombay, complete waste of time. The wheel wells, complete waste of time. And all the other sets internally as well, didn't really use them. You can't see any of that gorgeous detail in there. The Bombay one was my big bugbear. We are going to build it, we're going to do it as a standalone. It'll be attached onto this video when it's done at the end. But really, on this particular one as well, even the windows at the front, they have the armoured plates on there as well. You don't see them, so there's no physical way of seeing it. But, as you say, unless you're going to look underneath, I haven't got the bombs in ours. We've done it as if it's about to be armed or something else like that, purely because, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to have the bombs into the other one. So what I'm going to probably do is have it as a standalone item, put it next to it when it's all finished, and it can go through like that. But as you can see, it is a big lump. I think personally perhaps it's a little bit too big in this scale. If you've got the room and you want a very large Heinkel, then obviously this is the kit to go for. It's the only kit to go for, but that said, it's been a dream build. Got a little bit bogged down in the middle of the build perhaps, and I wasn't enjoying it too much, but certainly come to the end, getting the paint on there, it suddenly came back to me and I enjoyed this every single moment. It's a relatively cheap kit, but don't be put off by that. The quality and the engineering and that is absolutely fine. We had no fit issues whatsoever with this one, even though it's a little bit complex the way this top section goes in. And all this glass work around the front, taking your time, test fitting, i.e. dry fitting it before you actually put glue in there. If you find any little things, just nick them off. It tends to be the thing with all the Revell kits, especially the bigger ones. If you take your time test fitting them and going around and just removing tiny little bits of flash, little tiny perhaps mismold here, there and everywhere, you can actually get away with so much more then, because it just goes together flawlessly. But it needs that little bit of attention, a little bit of time spent, and it will pay off big time at the end, okay? Thoroughly enjoyed the paintwork on this one. We did something completely different. We used AK paints. Never used them before. Bit skeptical, if I'm honest, when I started, because if you believe, as you usually do with the internet, that it's terrible stuff and it's rubbish, it's brilliant. Worked absolutely flawlessly. It's on a par with anything that the actual normal Vallejo air range do. It went down, it thinned, it did everything we normally do with the weathering techniques of thinning down, fading, lightening, darkening. It loved it, and it mixed totally well with everything. With Model Air we put it through, and we've mixed it with Tamiya as well. We had no problems with it. Very easy clean up as well. So from that point of view, AK paints, if you need, like we did for doing this one, this is the set to go for. Go for the number 1 set. This is 2001, and it's got the colours we use, which is obviously the RLM 65, 70 and 71 for the colours on this one. We went through some different techniques and things with you, so hopefully, you know, you've picked up something along the way, a little bit of everything, even if it's down to things like we've done something a little bit different on here with the washes and the actual things. If I catch this in the light, hopefully you can see a lot of that pigment work that we put on the top, just a straightforward black pigment, just to knock back the chipping a little bit. You still see the chipping, you catch it in the light, but generally it's absolutely fine. And then obviously things like exhaust stains. You know, doing something a little bit different. We got one engine a little bit more smoky than the other. That's the way I wanted it. I wanted it to look like perhaps this engine's running a little bit not as well as the other side, and it worked really, really well. Again, using the washes to give it a nice scrub effect. This is rough, okay? That is the point. It sticks to it then. You can give it a very nice worn effect right the way over your model. As I said, it's one of those things, you take your time. If you don't like it, you can either then carry on and see what's going to happen, or you can pull the plug and just either wash off the wash and then with pigment just wash them away and start again, or you can just carry on a little bit all the way through. It's a long old build, this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if you have, join me again next time.